Be bold enough and courageous enough to accept people for how they show up. Experience them. And tonight, I'm going to be talking a little bit about maybe not love, but a little bit about wooing, right? Tonight, we're fresh coming off of Valentine's Day. I hope you had a great day on Monday, that you were able to celebrate with people you love and people that love you. Anyone have a blessed day on Monday? I did. I saw flowers and cards and all this stuff. Even my daughter came home with some stuff. She came home with chocolate covered strawberries and a bag of good. You know what? As we crack open that Bible, as we crack open that Word of God, it is all about love, and it certainly feels good to be loved. I certainly have had some Valentine's Day to remember, and some I would simply like to forget, like they never ever happened. But some of the most memorable ones were the ones that I was being wooed. Some of the most memorable Valentine's Day were the ones that I was being wooed and I felt adored and I felt smothered in love and smothered in gifts and all these things. Or even when I was doing the one, yes, I've been wooed, but yes, I've done some wooing myself. And it feels good to shower someone that you're enamored by, someone that you really want to get to know with a little bit of wooing. Remember that Jeffrey Osborne song? Do you know what I'm talking about when I'm talking about wooing? I hope you do. I hope you've been wooed. But that's the subject of my talk tonight, this Bible study. When you woo, 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 you don't just woo one time. You woo again and you woo again and you woo again. You just keep on wooing until that wooing, all that wooing you're doing is not reciprocated. It's falling on deaf ears. I've literally done everything for that man. Now, listen, if you a woman and you know what I'm talking about, you really know what I'm talking about when I'm talking about that man. I think all of us have had some interactions with that man and the things that we do for that man. I've done a lot of wooing for that man. And I'll tell you, a time or two it was reciprocated and a time or two it wasn't. It just wasn't appreciated, acknowledged, or even received. No matter what I did, he just was not into me. Which brings me to my text tonight. Let's talk about a little wooing, okay? My text is coming from Matthew chapter 11. Yes, we travel into the New Testament. We're going to talk about some wooing, saints. And there's a lot going on in chapter 11. And if you read it, you wonder, where's the wooing in chapter 11? What is she talking about? But truly, chapter 11 of Matthew is a snapshot of Jesus, not only who he loves, but how he loves them. See, there's some wooing that goes on, but wooing is just one thing. But when somebody really loves you, that's another thing. And that's what we see here in chapter 11. There's some central things on display in this text tonight, and we're going to examine some of those central themes. So the chapter is chapter 11 of the book of Matthew in the New Testament, and we're going to verse number 7. And as Jesus addresses this crowd around him, just take note to what he's saying to the people gathered. I'm going to read from the Message version, so I'm going to be looking down as I do so. Matthew chapter 11 verses 8 through 19 says in the Message, when John's disciples left to report, Jesus started talking to the crowd about John. What do you expect when you went out to see him in the wild? A weekend camper? Hardly. What then? A sheik in silk pajamas? Not in the wilderness, not by a long shot. He is the prophet that Malachi announced when he wrote, I am sending my prophet ahead of you to make the road smooth for you. So are you getting this picture here? Verses 11 through 14 in the Message says, let me tell you what's going on here. No one in history surpasses John the Baptizer, but in the kingdom he has prepared for you, the lowliest person is ahead of him. For a long time now, people have tried to force themselves into God's kingdom. But if you read the books of the prophets and God's law closely, you will see them culminate in John, teaming up with him in preparing. Listening to me? Really listening? How can I account for this generation? The people here have been like spoiled children, whining to their parents. We wanted to skip rope, and we're always too busy, too tired. We wanted to talk, but you were always too busy. John came fasting, and they called him crazy. I came feasting, and they called me a boozer, a friend of the misfits. Opinion polls do not count for much, do they? The proof of the pudding is in the eating. This is some real talk by Jesus. I mean, Jesus is breaking it down in this message version, right? He's saying, look, the proof is in the pudding. Y'all want this, y'all want that. What y'all really want. But it doesn't even matter because your opinions don't matter. This is real talk by Jesus talking to this crowd. I can imagine him saying, listen here, you. Right here, we piece together some key thoughts out of this Matthew chapter 11. Right here, we can see Jesus saying, hey, people's opinions change. People's opinions change. Their emotions change. Their thoughts change. They are never satisfied. People are always changing, but God is the only one that's consistent. People are wishy-washy. I mean, I remember dating a guy back in the day. I mean, one day he wanted me, one day he didn't. One day he wanted me, one day he didn't. Round and round the merry-go-round. And listen, I was the same in other relationships. One day I wanted him and one day I didn't. One day I wanted him and one day, depending on what I was going through in the moment, his look changed for me. And ain't it just like us, depending on what we're going through, that we can be wishy-washy? We can be wishy-washy with family. We can be wishy-washy with friends. And dare I say it, we can be wishy-washy with God. These people are standing in the presence of Jesus, and he's teaching the crowd, letting them know, hey, people, you wanting to be wooed, but you wishy-washy. See, this text chapter picks up with John the Baptist, who's caught up in his emotions. Yep, I said it. John the Baptist was caught up in his emotions. The one that dwelt in the wilderness, the one that really just made the way for Jesus, saw Jesus baptized Jesus, saw the dove coming from heaven. And yes, he was caught up in his emotion. John was in prison in the first verses of this chapter. He was in a dark situation, probably stressed out, uncomfortable, even unhappy. John had devoted his whole life to the cause of Christ and his mission as the herald for the coming of Christ. He was to announce the king, pointing people to that way, not to him, but to Christ. John had seen a lot, and he have gave a lot, but in the midst of his suffering, he doubted. So much so that he sent some of his disciples to ask Jesus, are you the real one? He sent some of his people to come to Jesus and say, from prison, are you the real one? Are you the Messiah that we have been expecting? And I just want to camp right here for a second. Yes, John the Baptist, wrestling with his doubt, wrestling with his own doubts about, is Jesus the real one? Is Jesus who he say he is? Is Jesus going to deliver like we think he's going to deliver? When we're back up against the wall, we can act just like John. When we're in trouble, just like John. When things are going expected, just like we think they should, sometimes we turn to Jesus and say, listen, are you the real one? Are you the real one that's going to deliver me? Are you the real one that's going to heal me? Are you the real one that's going to change my situation? Are you real? Are you who you say you are? Because real ones, just like in love, they have our back. That's why we were doing all that wooing. I don't know about you, but that's why I was doing all that wooing. They have our backs. They down for us. They hold us down. They go to bat for us. When I was wooing that man, I was simply looking for a real one. Simply looking for one that's going to be down for me. Well, Jesus has a response. And that's right where we pick up in verse 8. Just like that man, Jesus responded. He said, listen, I got something to share with you. I want you to go back and tell John some things. Go back and tell John what you heard and seen. The proof is in the pudding. How have you experienced me? How have you experienced me? Once you put all that superficial stuff to the side, how have you experienced me? How have I shown up in your life? It's not your expectations that make me who I am. It's not even your opinion that make me who I am. It's not even your knowledge of me that makes me who I am. See, because knowledge can be fleeting. Knowledge, one day you have a lot of knowledge and one day you don't. That doesn't change who Jesus is. He is who he is. God reported back to those disciples of John, check this out. I am who that I am. I am who that I am. Check the record. Check the record. I am who I say that I am. Go tell John that. But then Jesus turns to the crowd. Jesus tells those disciples to go back to John and confirm who he is. But then he turns to the crowd and confirms who John is. See, Jesus turns to this crowd and says, yeah, you heard that question about John. Yeah, you heard that. And you heard me say who I am. But listen to this. I'm going to tell you who John is. Let's just sit there for a moment. He's telling this crowd who John is. He's taking the time out of his mouth to tell them who John is. That shows the mercy of God. That shows how God loves his people. That shows how God stands to bat for his people. He said, yes, John. John is the one that is my heralder. John is the one that was prophesied about. John doubted, but John lives a life how I want him to live, and I called him to live. John, when his back against the wall, he had some questions, but he's still John. He's still John. See, God is so merciful because he turns to the crowd and say, listen, I'm going to testify for the people who have my back. I'm going to testify for the people who does my will. I'm going to stand for the people who loves me and is devoted to me. While we're on the subject of John, let me tell you about John. What is your expectations? See, John had some questions, but let's turn this back to you. What were you expecting? John, my servant, he's a real one. My servant may not be who you think he is. Maybe you think he got on some silk pajamas and living in palaces. Maybe that's what you think about what my servant would look like. Maybe you think my servant should act a certain way. Maybe you think he should live in a certain house or think a certain way. But my servant John is a real one, despite your expectations. Yes, he may have gotten a little doubt under his skin. Yes, he may have gotten a little confused, but he's still a real one. He's my messenger. The Old Testament declared who he was. No one is greater than John the Baptist that has lived right now. But the least is coming forth that is greater than him. No one who has ever lived is greater than John the Baptist in this moment. Listen to Jesus. Your expectations are not my measuring stick. What you expect the children of God to look like is not my measuring stick. I got my own measuring stick, and it ain't like yours. Talk about a stamp of approval. Jesus solidifies that John is that man, but he also solidifies something else. That by the work of John, that kingdom of God, that kingdom of heaven had been advancing. But what about you? What about you? This generation, Jesus said, what about you? Don't worry about John and what John is doing. Worry about yourself and your own expectation. What you doing? John had a few questions, but this generation needs a little tutelage. This generation needs to get out of their own way, get out of their own head. No one is greater than John, but the lesser is coming. But I'm going to pick it up right here in verse 12. Now I'm reading from the New Living Translation. To what can I compare this generation? Is it like children playing a game in the public square? They complain to their friends. We played wedding songs and you didn't dance. We played funeral songs and you didn't mourn. For John didn't spend his time eating and drinking. You say, he's possessed by a demon. The Son of Man, on the other hand, feasts and drink, you say. He is a glutton. But wisdom is shown to be right by its results, not by opinions. I'm adding not by opinions. This generation, here Jesus is saying. Then Jesus began to denounce the town where he'd done so many miracles because they hadn't repented of their sins and turned to God. What sorrow awaits you, he's telling them. These Old Testament cities is going to be better off than you. This was done for you and you didn't acknowledge it. That was done to you and you didn't acknowledge it. You are wishy-washy people. Instead of talking about me and my people, why don't you just go on and experience me? Instead of talking about, now that's a message for us today. Instead of talking about what this minister is doing or not doing, what this church is doing and not doing, what this Christian friend is doing and not doing, what this sinner is doing and not doing. Instead of having their name all up in your mouth, you wishy-washy yourself. What so-and-so is doing and what so-and-so is not doing. Why don't you just turn to me and experience me? Don't be worried about the wooing. Don't be worried about this and that and what this person is doing and that person is doing. Why don't you just experience me? Because if you lean in and experience me, you know I'm the truth. You know I'm the real one. In all your sorrows and anxiety and joy and hope and piety and religiosity, sadness, experience me. Lean into me. That's what God is saying. See, when I was dating, the one thing about one was it was the acts that the other person did that won the heart. When you showed up to my door with flowers, you might just get a little date. If you showed up with some bags or some gifts, you might just got to go away with me for the weekend. And to be honest, sometimes I took the acts that somebody was doing for the experience because it was all up in my opinion. Instead of experiencing the real person, I was looking at the acts. If he wooed me the right way, or if I wooed him the right way, it might be on and popping. But Jesus gets down to the nitty gritty. He says, look, don't be looking at all that other stuff. Experience me. Experience the true me. After all these things that these people have seen, miracle after miracle. If you read back in Matthew, that's all it is. Miracle after miracle after miracle. God is doing some fabulous things. And all these people are privy. That's why the crowd was there. That's why the crowd came. And he lets them know. These cities that was wicked, Sodom, remember Sodom that was destroyed in the Old Testament? Tyre and Sidon, all these things, all these cities that was wicked and was destroyed. Because they didn't see me. They didn't experience me. They didn't see me walking amongst them and talking to them and teaching them. It's when you think too highly of yourself. Me. When your opinion is so wise, so clever, so arrogant. We play music and you didn't dance. We play mourning songs and you didn't mourn. All this stuff. And you still came up with a faulty opinion. It should be done this way and that way, this way. You should fast. You should not fast. You should do this. You should not do this. Stop looking at the acts. Experience God. And stop looking at the acts of his people and the world. Stop judging. Experience God. Let me just say that again. Stop judging and experience God. I have experienced this in my own way. I mean, I was called to ministry years ago and didn't accept the call. I did accept the calling, but I didn't want to tell nobody, afraid of what people would think. I didn't even tell my family until my husband asked me. But I would not tell other people because guess what? They judging. They're judging. The one they can lift you up one minute and tear you down another. Saints, we got to stop looking at people with the critical eye. We got to stop looking at people with the critical eye and judging them for who they are and what they are doing. That is God's business, not ours. Our opinion does not matter. We got to experience people and we got to experience God. If I see a homeless person and judge them, they don't got no teeth, they ain't got, they dirty, and say, oh, I don't, they not worth my time. It could be called to Christ. Charlie Wilson's story. It's not the acts of people. Acts can never win the heart. It is how you experience them. Because listen, if God never did another thing for you, he would still be God and he would still be good. And if God never did another thing for me, he would still be good and he would still be God. We can't make anybody care about us by what we do. We have to experience them. Last Bible study talk, we talked about giving people ear, giving people audience. Stop judging. When we really care about people, that's when the change will happen. Just like it did with us with Christ. When we really felt the care and the love of Christ, that's when the change happened for us. So be bold and courageous, people of God. Stop hiding about who you think you are or who other people think you are. Be bold and courageous. Stop hiding. Be bold and courageous. Stop hiding behind what you think you know. You don't know nothing and I don't know nothing. What's the song? You don't know nothing. And neither do I. He knows it all. We're learning of God, learning of his kingdom, learning of his grace, learning of his mercy, learning of his righteousness. We're learning day by day. Day by day, we are dying to our flesh. Listen, am I on the soapbox? I think I am. But stop hiding behind what you think you know the right way. This is the right way somebody of God should show up. This is the right way somebody of God should be acting. This is the right way of somebody of God should be dressing. This is the right way of somebody of God should be talking. Be bold enough and courageous enough to accept people for how they show up. Experience them. Stop picking on people, backbiting, and even manipulating. How about that? Even manipulating to try to get people to do this and do that. Stop being wishy-washy. Accept what is. Be bold and courageous enough to accept what is. And stop trying to manipulate things and people to go your way or the way you think they should go. Be bold. Be courageous enough to let God do the work. Not leaning on ourselves, but leaning on him. We are not experts and we have to stop trying to be the expert all the time. That's what this text is saying in Matthew 11. We wishy-washy. We wishy-washy, people. I am. I don't know that you are, but I am. Listen, even when John doubted, he wasn't wishy-washy. He had some questions. And guess what he did? He asked the master. He went and asked. He sent his people to go ask. Asked him, is he the one? We need to be humble, not care what people are thinking or saying, be accepting, teachable, and movable. Because listen, the seasons are changing. And we can't change, right? Only through Christ. But we have to broaden our vision to allow people to experience Christianity, Christ and Christ in us differently. People are running away from the church. They ain't trying to step foot in the church. They running away with church hurt. They running away with church experience. They running away from the church. Sometimes even because they think they're more of an expert than they are. Experience God. Be courageous enough and bold enough to stand on God and God alone. Soapbox, right? It's not about the wooing. It's not about the wooing. It's about the experiencing. Experience God. Allow him to come into your heart in a new way. Allow him to show up in a new way and be reflected in you in a new way. Which one of us is that talking to about being bold and courageous? Are we the one that's judging? Are we the one that think we know it all? Are we the one that's looking with a critical eye? Are we the one who's manipulating? Are we the ones? Be bold and courageous to do it differently. Experience God in a new way so people in the world can experience him in a new way too. God will draw. We don't have to woo. God will draw. And it ain't our opinion that's going to draw. It is him and him alone. Leave your opinions at the door. Reflect Christ in you each and every day. Be open to people. Be open to their hearts. Be open to their experience. Be open to their journey. And love on them anyhow. Listen, God bless you. Thank you for joining me tonight. I soapboxed it, didn't I? But listen, God bless you, bless you, bless you. Thank you for joining me.